So Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier takes place as the main event of UFC 302. And let's be honest with ourselves here for a second. Dustin Poirier's chances of beating Islam are just not that high. I hate to break it to you. I hate to be that guy, but Dustin Poirier has one of the the toughest challenge in front of him this weekend against Islam Makhachev. This is his worst matchup, a guy who can be sufficient on the feet and also has superior grappling to him. Dustin Poirier has never done well against grapplers. That is Dustin Poirier's biggest hole in his game, is the grappling. He doesn't do well. We call him Stiff Hips Poirier for a reason. And you know what? I might be wrong with that. Maybe he isn't known as Stiff Hips Poirier, but people do know that Poirier just doesn't do well against takedowns. And we have plenty of evidence for this. I mean, even against Oliveira, who isn't really that good of a takedown guy himself, was able to control Dustin Poirier for a whole entire round. And now you could argue the fact that maybe Poirier was trying to stay safe. He didn't want to get up and get choked out by Oliveira, so he was content with staying in full guard that entire time. But if Charles Oliveira is able to control you on the ground and you're scared of the grappling, Islam is just as big of a threat. And honestly, it's a lot easier to get up from bottom position versus Oliveira than it is versus Islam. Islam looks for control. Islam wants control, while Oliveira just wants to get the submission on you. Oliveira's content was staying in a position for as long as he can and just work slowly and methodically towards getting a submission. He just takes his time, and he's really, really smart on the ground. Doesn't really lose too much position going for a submission. He's just a next level guy in terms of grappling. So if Poirier does get taken down, I don't see him getting back up at all. Dustin Poirier couldn't even get back up from Michael Chandler, from Khabib. There's just too much evidence to suggest that Poirier's get-ups and just overall takedown defense is just not there enough to compete with a guy like Islam. And looking back at that Michael Chandler fight, Poirier could have lost that one. He was getting out-grappled in the second round, and the third round the same way. But you know what? Chandler has a negative IQ, goes for the slam, gets reversed. He has really bad IQ at times, and Poirier, to be fair to him, did take advantage of that moment. But with that being said, there's not going to be that many moments compared to Chandler versus Islam. There's going to be less of them. Islam isn't going to go for a dumb takedown or a stupid slam or get out of position. He's very methodical. He likes his trips, his outside, inside trips. He loves to do judo throws as well. Back when Islam was first fighting in the UFC, that was his main form of getting a takedown in his first fight. In his UFC debut, the main way that Islam got his takedowns was by using the judo throw. And I almost can guarantee you, if there's ever a clinch exchange between Poirier and Islam, let's say Poirier is the one having Islam against the cage, Islam's probably going to throw him down and then control him for the rest of that round. That's just how it's going to be. And I know a second ago I was kind of shitting on Chandler's IQ, but Poirier's still might not be the best as well. I think his IQ is better than Chandler's, of course, but the way he pulls guillotines from takedowns, he just doesn't care. He just pulls the guillotine no matter what. If it's a single leg or a double leg, Dustin Poirier is probably going to yank on a guillotine. When he fought BSD, he pulled like 4 guillotines. It felt like 10, but I think he pulled like maybe 3 or 4 of them in a row. And nowadays, if you're fighting any good experienced grappler, they know how to get out of guillotines. You get off to the side, you get into half guard, get into side control. You just get to the side and you can go for a Von Flue choke. There's just ways to get out of guillotines nowadays. And I think any smart fighter who doesn't panic in that situation is going to be able to find a way out of the guillotine. And when it comes to Islam, I pretty much have full faith in him to be able to stay calm in that situation and not get choked up by a guillotine by Dustin Poirier. We've seen this plenty of times in Islam's career. He's always been getting guillotined. He seems to always fall into a guillotine, which is kind of suspect from Islam, but he always finds his way out of it. Never been submitted before. There's been some times where it's been close with the guillotines, but he always finds a way out. So if you're going to pull guillotines, man, they're just not going to work against Islam. I'm sorry. I don't see Poirier getting a guillotine finish in this. If somehow in your brain you think Poirier's going to get a guillotine finish, don't bet on it. That's one thing I'm telling you not to do. You might get some good odds to where you might think about sprinkling like $5-10 on a submission for Dustin Poirier. Just don't even waste your time. Don't waste the money. I wouldn't do it. I've bet plenty of times in the past, but I still wouldn't even bet $1 on Dustin Poirier by submission. I just couldn't. I think that is completely out of the cards. It's off the table. I don't see it happening. Dustin Poirier, again, was pulling so many guillotines versus BSD, and he still got taken down and controlled. And let's be real here. Maybe if BSD didn't have staph infection, maybe he would have gotten submitted by Poirier at some point. And that's the thing about Poirier as well. He's pretty open to submissions. Whenever Poirier tries to scramble or get back up to his feet or go for a get up from bottom position, he always leaves his neck open. Going back to the whole Oliveira conversation, the reason why Poirier chose to stay on the ground and just hug it out for that second round against Oliveira was because I think he knows his get-ups are pretty bad and that he's pretty open to getting submitted by a rear naked choke if he does try to get up. So it's better for him just not to try and just to stay there the entire time. And we've seen this several times with Poirier versus Khabib versus Oliveira. He just always leaves his neck open. Even against BSD at times, I'm pretty sure BSD was this close to having a choke locked in on Poirier. He just doesn't have good get-ups and his neck is always exposed. He's just so susceptible to getting rear naked choked whenever he's getting up from his feet. It's kind of baffling at times. I don't know. So there are a lot of ways for Poirier to lose this. Again, this is a very bad matchup for him, but I'm not going to rule out him losing completely. I think Poirier has a chance. I just can't come in here and just say 100% Islam's going to win. That would be unjustifiable. This is MMA. This is the UFC. Things are unpredictable. So with that being said, Poirier has a chance to win this fight. Not a big chance, but he can win this fight. It is possible for him. He can go out there and he can put some mustard on Islam Makhachev and possibly TKO him because, let's be real here, Poirier striking is good. He has good striking. I won't talk your ear off about that. I think anybody who has watched Poirier before or has been a casual fan of the UFC knows that Poirier has good striking, knows that he has good boxing. And we know with Islam's chin, he is chinnable. He can be chinned. He can be hurt. He can be dropped. He can be rocked, and he can be finished. It happened to him in his second fight in the UFC against Adriano Martins. Islam is susceptible to being chinned, and I don't think many people can chin Islam right now in the UFC, but I think if I had to make a list of like the top 10 people who could chin Islam, I would put Poirier on that list. I put him somewhere probably in the top 5, top 3, maybe if I'm being really nice to Poirier. He can chin Islam, but again, Islam's good on the feet as well. I went back and I watched all of Islam's UFC fights. I have a video that might come out later this week where I go back and just go through the entirety of Islam's career, and I've watched every single Islam fight. And he has made strides. So he's improved so much since his time when he first lost to Adriano Martins. After that, after his KO loss to him, he really focused on improving his striking. And if you go back and you watch that Davy Ramos fight, you see the leaps and strides that he made in striking. He's a totally different fighter. When he first came into the UFC, he was very simple. He would just throw basic 1-2s with some looping hooks. They looked very awful. It was the same combination over and over and over again. But when he fought Davy Ramos, you saw him at least try to develop his striking game, and you definitely saw it against Volk. Islam right now is just a complete fighter, and I'm not an Islam glazer. I'm not even an Islam fan. I don't like Islam. I prefer him to lose to Dustin Poirier. I want Poirier to win. And I don't like Poirier either, but I'm not an Islam fan, so I'm trying to say here. But when I'm being unbiased in this, I'm looking at the facts and what I've seen and what I've watched. I've seen an evolved Islam who is a complete fighter. He can strike, he can grapple. His grappling is better than his striking, I'll say that, but his striking is elite. It's not like elite. I would still say Poirier striking is better, but Islam striking is good enough to where he can do damage on the feet. He can chin Poirier. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Islam go out there and get a head kick KO over Poirier. It wouldn't shock me in the slightest. It's possible because he has added new things to his striking game. He's smarter. He fights on the back foot. He's very defensively aware. He knows how to avoid shots. He knows how to counter shots. He is sufficient on the feet. So Poirier is going to really have to work to get a finish over Islam. I think if Poirier can survive on the ground, stay safe, maybe get up a couple times, because Islam will take him down. He will get down Poirier at some point. But if Poirier has improved enough on his takedown defense and his get-ups, and he's able to get up safely without getting submitted, then maybe he can wear down Islam as the fight goes on. And we saw Islam show a little bit of vulnerability against, damn, that was a what? But we saw Islam in trouble against Volk in that 5th round, so maybe the gas tank isn't elite amazing. Even against Thiago Moises, Islam can go 5 hard rounds, but that 4th and 5th round is where things get a bit iffy for him. So maybe Poirier can come out in that 4th and 5th round to a tired Islam who's tired of grappling up Poirier for 3 rounds, for 4 rounds. Maybe it's an Islam that's been more gassed out than what we've ever seen before, and maybe Poirier can go out there and just sting him with one good hook, and it's all she wrote, and then he just pours it on Dustin Poirier style, because he does have some of the best finishing ability when it comes to strikes. So if at any point in this fight Poirier ends up hurting Islam, that might be all she wrote. All it takes is one good punch from Poirier and a bad takedown afterwards from Islam for this fight just to be over and Poirier's the new champion. But do I see that happening? I don't think so. Like I mentioned before, I think Islam is just too complete with the grappling, with the striking. There's not really any huge hole in his game that I think Poirier can exploit. So with my official prediction, I will be taking Islam by, I think, 2nd round submission. I think Poirier will try to stay safe in that 1st round, come out the 2nd round, and then get submitted from just being overwhelmed and making a mistake. But like I just said a second ago, you never know. Poirier has a puncher's chance, maybe a bit more than that. I give him like a 25% chance to win this fight. I think it's very low, but he has a good, not a coin flip, but like he has a good chance, a good 25% chance maybe Poirier can get it done. We'll see what happens, but I think Poirier is in some real trouble come this Saturday. So there you go. That's my full fight prediction for Dustin Poirier versus Islam Makhachev. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, hit that bell icon for notifications. I'll see y'all later. Peace.